Okay, so keeping up our conversation with that one, we've got Mr. Bode Showme here with us. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
So for you, what is the significance of this old Port Harcourt refinery coming on stream?
I think we don't need to make anything complicated. We have had a moribund refinery that successive governments and successive tenures of people within the NNPC have tried to make it work, and they couldn't make it work, and it is now working. It is an achievement of sorts. It may not be that big of an achievement in terms of a milestone, but it is an achievement to the extent that whatever issues of corruption, of manipulation, or whatever it is that's within the system that's not making it work has been overcome, and it is working. So on that side. The second part is that we have a significant part of the energy value chain being resolved. That is the fact that we have additional liters being put into our refining capacity. The third part, which is very significant, but which is on the midterm and the long term, is the opportunities that are going to come out of it. So they are going to employ some vendors who are going to help them with maintenance of some things. That's employment opportunities. Vendors are going to supply food. Vendors are going to do things around that area. So in that community, in the midterm and the long term, that's economic activity for them. So when you look at it from the holistic view, it is progress.
So a couple of things. Now, when you say a couple of liters to be added, a couple of liters of what? Diesel, DPK, but not PMS, is it?
They announced PMS. And it must be understood that the refinery has been set up to be producing PMS for decades.
Yeah, but what we understand is that the new refinery is the one that has the capacity to refine PMS. But this, of course, you must have read about that allegation, is kind of blending that is going on there. Even though Mr. Shegun says, well, there's a level of refining. There was almost saying no distinctive difference between blending and refinery. But I always say, look, there is a distinctive difference, because one is about taking already refined product and then refining further to produce to a certain specification. But if you're going to refine, you get the crude, take it from that process, you break it down and get all of those products. And they
okay, so this is about science now. So the refining process takes place through what is called fractional distillation. So fractional distillation is a big word for distillation in fractions, or distillation at different levels. So this is basic chemistry. So what is distillation? Basically, you distill spirits, for example, into water. It dissolves. Now, you have different components that make up crude oil. You have petrol there, you have kerosene there, you have naphtha. So each of them are distillates. But by chemical composition, they have different boiling points. So what they basically do in the refining process is that you boil it in a container. At a certain temperature, kerosene will evaporate. Then you capture it. At a certain temperature, petrol evaporates. You capture it. So basically what is done when you talk about blended or some unfinished product is that they have done the refinery in such a stage that it can only take one or two components based on the temperature configuration, and you still have the other components in the mix which can still be distilled. So basically, once you put the crude oil, you can get the first two components out, which can be diesel and whatever and kerosene, and then the remainder can now be taken to a further place where it is further distilled, and that's the big word that they use called blending and all that. So it's just a case of incomplete combustion.
Okay, but when yesterday the whole place was awash with this event, this occasion, but then the realistic thing is it's not going to go beyond a certain locality in Port Harcourt, and so it will serve at least close proximity to those areas. It won't have as wide reach as perhaps the Dangote refineries, over 28 million thereabouts. It can reach the entire country and beyond, unless maybe if the new Port Harcourt refinery comes on stream, maybe like what is it, 10 million capacity or something like that. So maybe with that one, you can then have a more extended reach. So yes, with the buzz, but in terms of being realistic, it's a limited coverage.
So there's nothing wrong with small steps. I mean, the Wright brothers who invented the aeroplane, they only flew the plane for less than 50 meters. But it was an epoch-making event because every single flight that humans are able to do is dependent on that single less than 50 meters that took place. So it is the same thing. You have had a jinx being broken, you have had a barrier being broken through. So that is what is significant in terms of the reach, in terms of the achievement, in terms of the many options that are possible. Those are things that will be a result of strategy and planning and further thinking. It is a journey. It is not an event. So the whole industry does not end with what happened yesterday. It is part of a long, long journey. So we just have to celebrate little things and appreciate little things as we go towards the final destination.
I think one of the questions people have been asking really, and it's interesting that we've gotten some of that explanation from Sadakpo earlier, and then also getting that same response from you as well. You know, when we say we want to be able to localize the refining of crude, we don't want to import petrol anymore. We want to refine our crude and have our own PMS. So that's the mindset in the mind of the Nigerian. Is there any reason to believe that that is not happening right now with all of these explanations we're hearing? The boiling process, or what refining really means, what blending is, and all of that. Is there any reason why the Nigerians should be thinking right now that no, we're not there yet, where we're actually refining our crude from our local refineries, from the government-owned refineries that we have, refining crude into PMS? Is that happening, yes or no? I think that is the major question.
I think that is a question that the engineers on site will be the perfect person to answer. However, from the press release that has been issued, they did say that they are producing PMS. So, except there's evidence to the contrary, we have to go with that. I mean, there were journalists who went there. Somebody did say yesterday that she went there, she saw the thing being loaded, she interviewed one of the, and it's a journalist. So there's no reason why we should disbelieve that. There are people who want to believe the worst, which is okay, freedom of speech. But things must, for the purpose of balance and for the purpose of sanity, things must always be kept in perspective. So the people who are working on there, the engineers on site, and those who are loading it say that they are loading PMS. So why should we not believe them?
So let's talk a little bit about the future. I asked this earlier as well. It took so long. We kept hearing deadline after deadline after deadline for this Port Harcourt refinery to be up and running. Based on the statements we've seen and the reports that we have, it is up and running right now. But we do have other refineries. There's Warri, there's Kaduna, there's all of these other things going on. And many people have been asking, with all the staff members, there's turnaround maintenance on these refineries every year that runs into billions. There's also the fact that there are a lot of staff members. These people are going to work. Are they getting paid for not doing anything? What should the NNPC be thinking about? That accountability question when it comes to the other moribund, in quote, refineries that we have in the country.
I think if I remember correctly, the press release that came from the presidency was that the work is already ongoing on the other refineries and they will come on board. It's my understanding that the way engineering has been given that contract and they will do it. So I believe that the same way, and they are also the ones that worked on Port Harcourt, by the way. So I believe that the same way Port Harcourt came on stream, the others too will come on stream.
So we should just be patient, just be patient. It will happen.
I think Nigerians also owe it to ourselves to be knowledgeable about the fundamentals so that we are not tossed about with every wind of opinion. I say this because if you take, for example, the power sector, one of the reasons why so many things happen for so long and the issues are there is because if you ask the average Nigerian, they say, do you even really know what the issues are in the power sector? He said, no, I don't care. I just want power. It sounds logical, but it's ignorant. It's ignorant, and when you're ignorant, you are not able to put the critical mass of pressure on the right areas. So we, as Nigerians, need to know the fundamentals. When we know the fundamentals, we won't be bothered about what doesn't matter, and we'll ask questions on the things that matter. The fact that work is going on matters. The fact that some people are saying they are naysayers despite the fact that others are working doesn't matter. Because you will always have distraction if you have ever done any project that is worthwhile. Anybody that's ever, even if you have built a chicken house, there will always be people who will be naysayers. So it's incumbent upon Nigerians to have certain basic knowledge so that they will know the things that matter as against the things that doesn't matter, so that you are not distracting or disturbing those who are working because of those who are spectators.
So part of the things that many also will be really glad if it happens is at least not marginal adjustment, but at least significant adjustment in pricing. Even though NNPC says, look, it's going to be marginal. They don't expect anything. Maybe I should use the word fantastic in terms of the pricing. But by the time all these refineries come on stream, you have BUA probably next year. And I thought that should be significant. You should make them say, look, let's have something more significant in terms of the pricing, and then maybe also address availability of the product.
Okay, so I think part of the problem with wrong expectations is also how the issues are being reported, which partially is also media. Because out of nowhere, for over a year, people believed that Dangote Refinery was going to come on board and was going to reduce prices.
Well, I don't think it's out of nowhere.
No, it is, because
before it was even reported, there were several persons who said that they heard it on good authority, that it came from there, that when he comes on stream,
so people say things without verification. Because you don't need to be a mathematician. You really don't even need to be an expert of sorts to have a clear idea of how much refining costs. You can actually Google it. And because crude oil is a global commodity, refining cost is largely the same whether it is local or international. Crude oil cost is largely the same, irrespective. There are differences between those who have sulfur and those who are not, but they're about the same cost. Transportation cost, you can Google it. By the time you just do all those computations,
local or international costs?
Both. Because you can, for those which are going to be imported and all that, so you can have an idea of what the cost is and have an idea of what the cost is locally. The key component, what is affecting the price, is the naira to the dollar. That is the fact. That is what was not taken into account. Now, I'll give an example. In 2005, I went to Stockholm, Sweden. The cost of the ticket was about 190,000 naira. At that time, it was like $1,200. Guess what? Today, it is over 2 million. But do you know what? It is still at that cost of $1,200, thereabouts. So the real difference is not so much as the price has increased, but that the naira to dollar ratio has significantly plummeted. As long as there are differences within that, fluctuations between the naira to dollar ratio, it will ultimately affect the price on the pump.
Well,
the key component to determine the price of the pump is really outside the circle of influence of the industry. What additional refining capacity will do, and what multiple source of refining capacity will do, is to make sure that the price is cost reflective. Well, in other words, they will give you the exact cost, and nobody will really be able to cheat Nigerians.
There are several perspectives to some of these things. Some will say that may not be the ultimate one. It's a huge factor, but not the ultimate, because there are several components to all of those things. Because they also say, look, while you bring it in to the country, all of those debates about landing costs, the insurance to some of those costs where you have to, perhaps when they used to go from mother vessel and then they call it daughter vessel, all of those costs in between there, the insurance cost, the trading of crude, all those components, if you now bring it back home here, so you largely remove all of those. And then the local transportation costs too. So that's why they say there are several components. But yes, the dollar component is huge. And so, but there's nothing out of the ordinary if people think, okay, if we have this product here, there should be some sort of advantage that we have, especially when you have to talk about the byproducts, which we were not talking about when we take the crude out and bring it back in here.
So people can have expectations, but the expectations cannot be founded on nothing. It must be founded on some of that. That's why I said knowledge is very important, some basic knowledge. You see, there's logic and there's knowledge. I'll give an example. Virtually every liquid in the world, this is basic chemistry, once they become solid, they shrink in size, except in the case of water. When water becomes solid, it expands. That's why when you put water in a glass and you put it in the freezer, it breaks the glass. It is actually called the anomalous expansion of water. Now, if you were talking on an average discussion and you say, for somebody who is not familiar with water, and you say, water, once it becomes solid in this case, is going to expand. Somebody who is familiar with every other liquid will say, no, that doesn't make sense. It is not logical. It is not logical, but it is a fact. So when you come to these things that are technical, there are a number of things that may not be logical, but are factual. It is logical to expect that since all these components are in Nigeria, the price should necessarily come down. But the devil is always in the details. When you break down the details, the cost of running the operations, the cost of the product itself, because it must be sustainable, you will find out that that logic will turns its head on the head.
Could you explain the logic behind when late President Yaradua reduced the price of petrol?
I'm not aware of the parameters with which he reduced it, because it is based on available information. It is parameters that are on ground that determines it. So he could have reduced it and it will be a subsidy. It could. There are so many things.
I was going to say that because if you're going to reduce, at that time, it would have meant that they had to increase the subsidy.
Yes, but they didn't.
But in fairness,
no, we don't check it out.
We don't know that.
No, check it out.
So it is only the NNPC and the ministry that will be able to give us the information. The president is not necessarily going to say he's putting subsidy.
Okay, so this is where we are right now. As we're looking at an industry that is struggling really with the removal of fuel subsidy and the impact that all of that is having on the Nigerian people. As we start to round up, really, just talk to us a little bit about what the future should look like. I'm sorry, I do seem very people-centric, and that's because this is a product that's impacting the lives of people. So if we're looking at everything that's going on right now, we're looking at this refinery on board right now, we're looking at the fuel subsidy that has been removed with the Dangote refinery on board and all of that. Just talk to us a little bit about the future and what the Nigerians should be thinking about when they're looking at their pockets and their spending power in the midst of these dynamics.
Okay, I think there's a mix here. There are some part of this that are technical. There's some part of it that is purely economics. So when you talk about the impact on Nigerians, you are talking about inflation, you're talking about its cost on transportation and all that. Those are economic issues. That's for the economists, the Minister of Finance, CBN, and those in that area to make those decisions. We are technical people, we're engineers, we're consultants with respect to energy. So we talk molecules, we talk the processing and all that. However, having said that, there are some kind of input I can say as a Nigerian. Now, when we remove the technical part and put the human face to it, we look at the fact that this commodity is affecting our lives and is having impact in ways that we did not expect. But that is the nature and the essence of such kind of reforms. I think one of the challenges is that Nigerians did not really expect what to do with import, because when you check China, when you check Britain in the 70s, when you check Brazil in the 80s, these things did have kind of strange impacts on them as well.
All right, we'll have to go. I know people are wondering, say, look, so what I say, if there's no impact whatsoever
what's the big deal
on on all these refineries opening here, keep importing it then. So what's the point?
If the price is the same
Just tell your
or more.
Well, thank you for coming on this morning for the show.
It was a pleasure.
Well, that is the show today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Have a great day ahead. I'm Kayla Magwa.
NNPC.